So welcome to this week's winter webinar session, where today I am thrilled to remind you that being alone does not have to mean lonely. So the pressure to engage in social situations or continuously bounce from one activity to the next can feel immense at times. Whether just returning from holiday time, a much-deserved vacation break, or even just making it through a regularly scheduled day, you may find yourself yearning to spend some moments away from all of the hustle and bustle life throws at us. So today's main objective is to shine a light on the many benefits of solitude and the benefits that it has to offer, and kind of remove that negative stigma that has been cast on me time. So today I'm going to break everything down into 4 bite-sized objectives. So first, we're going to address the distinction between what it means to be alone versus lonely. Then we'll dive into why people may find it hard to be alone. Next, what are the benefits, if any, to alone time? And finally, we will wrap up today's webinar with discussing what activities are most beneficial to us physically and mentally during our periods of solitude. So let's look at specifically what makes these two terms different. And I think, the biggest difference, and it's been researched as well, is there is a choice. It's the word choose. So we choose to spend time with ourselves. We choose to be alone. While on the other hand, we may actually want or desire that socialization, but remain isolated. Usually feeling lonely isn't a choice. Here's another way to look at this difference, especially for my visual learners out there. It is possible to be alone, but not feel lonely. Take this lady, for instance. She's going on a run. She's definitely alone, but I wouldn't consider her lonely. She has chosen to exercise by herself and at her own pace. Now, on the flip side here, it's possible to feel lonely even when surrounded by many people. And take this person, for instance. They are surrounded by many people in a hustle and bustle, and yet there's still that sense of seclusion and isolation. So a second main difference here, the first being that choice to be alone versus lonely. The second big difference is that being alone is usually a physical state, while being lonely is an emotional one. I think we can all agree that there is a difference between alone and lonely, and usually lonely is where it can be a little bit damaging to us mentally and physically. So we'll go ahead and dive into our next objective here, the science behind why people may find it difficult to choose to be alone. It's not uncommon, at least especially while I was growing up, I heard more often than not my mom to tell me, like, go to your room, or you're in timeout, or maybe in times past, stand in the corner. But this forced alone time serving as punishment is one of the many reasons why solitude has kind of gotten a bad rap in our culture. Children can start associating with being alone with being punished, whether it's physically standing in the corner, or even just something as simple as their parents leaving them for a quick errand. They can kind of associate that with a punishment. And this is also seen in adult life as well, in the form of solitary confinement as punishment for poor behavior within the prison system. So humans, we've kind of long imbued this negative stigmatism of solitude. And some may really consider spending time alone as a wrong, or something that you need to be forced to do. Scientifically, humans are naturally social creatures. It may feel unnatural to some to have this desire to be alone. We've evolved to thrive in a society, a community, and kind of make those meaningful connections with others. Therefore, spending significant time alone can kind of trigger such feelings as isolation, anxiety, even physical stress, especially if people, feeling these triggers are not accustomed to solitude, or if they've experienced negative situations with being alone. But with all of that said, we all know we do things differently when we're alone as opposed to when others can see us. And don't you dare try to tell me otherwise. Personally, I don't make it a habit to perform a concert in front of my friends if they're over at my house and I'm trying to do some cleaning up. But if I'm alone, you had best believe I am performing on stage like a rock star doing some light dusting. So this does tie right back into why people or some people can get a little wiggly about being alone. People often feel inhibited from enjoying their activities alone. If we think people are watching, this can really mess with our mojo. It can throw us off our game completely. We actually overestimate how much people are paying attention to us. And when we overestimate how much people are paying attention, we then worry about being judged, and this can stop us. This can really hinder us from doing things that would otherwise bring us joy. Studies have actually shown that we do pretty good on our own when we have some sort of stimuli to keep our minds busy. Examples of stimuli, and we've gone through many of them already, are things like reading a book, having music to listen to, our phones or a gaming device, and even just the presence of another person nearby can count. But when stimuli isn't present and people are just left with themselves and their thoughts, this can start to cause those trigger feelings of anxiety, boredom, isolation, and just general uncomfortableness. So researchers at the University of Virginia kind of dove into our need for stimuli and found some kind of astonishing information that goes well beyond just a sore toe. So they took men and women aged 18 to 77. They were participants in a series of 11 studies so far, and this was done in about 6 to 15-minute sessions each. So these participants were asked to sit alone in a room with no stimuli for just that brief amount of time, just 6 to 15 minutes. Study participants consistently demonstrated that they would rather have something to do than have nothing other than their thoughts for 15 minutes. So the study then evolved from no stimuli whatsoever into giving participants the option of administering a mild electric shock to themselves by the press of a button. And researchers were pretty shocked by the results, pun intended. So they found that participants preferred to give themselves a mild electric shock rather than sit in a room without stimuli. So they would rather shock themselves than just sit there. It's wild. So UVA psychologist Timothy Wilson and his colleagues explain that they're still trying to work out the exact reasons why people find it difficult to be alone just with their thoughts. But they did conclude that our minds are designed to engage with the world around us. So given the option, these participants wanted to engage in something and be a part of something other than just themselves. So unless we have special training in meditation or thought control techniques, most people prefer to engage in external activities or, as we previously discussed, engaging with some form of stimuli. By the end of this webinar, I'm going to share the link to this study because I found it fascinating that people would push that button, like knowingly push that button and shock themselves. So I'll share this link to the study in chat for you guys if you are interested in your own time to read up on it. So as we wrap up objective 2, let's note there can be many reasons why people prefer not to be alone. But while being alone or the idea of wanting to be alone may seem uncomfortable to some, spending time in solitude does in fact have its benefits. So remember this slide when we were discussing the difference between alone and lonely? One thing that really differentiates the two is the option to choose or have a choice, remember? So the approach scientists are taking nowadays is that when pursued by a choice, solitude is something that can be highly beneficial and actually therapeutic. So let's examine what some of those initial benefits look like. And I'm going to kind of take you on a game show option here. We got three doors to pick from. So if we choose door 1, we may begin to develop or work on that sense of self, which can gain self-confidence and self-assuredness. Door 2 can help us to recharge and reset, especially after a stressful period, which could then in turn make being with others that much more enjoyable. And door three kind of offers you the opportunity to discover your true interests. When you're alone, do you get absolutely lost in a book or a show? Do you lose track of time when baking or drawing? Activities and interests where we get fully immersed like this are often better done in solitude and can have many healing attributes. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Almost all research on the benefits of being alone notes that discovering solitude is an exercise in self-discovery. Like investigating below an iceberg, you might be surprised at what you find. So solitude is actually restorative for both your mind and your body. Spending time alone allows you to hit kind of that reset button. Additionally, there's a freedom in not really having to follow the lead of others. So with no pressure to do anything, talk to anyone, or obligation to make plans with people, you really allow yourself the opportunity to fully decompress, even if you're a highly sociable individual. So when you begin to develop that sense of self and start figuring out who you really are, that confidence meter will just go through the roof. And this allows you to become more comfortable with yourself and the decisions you make. You can then better navigate social situations when you take time to explore your solitude. You must confront who you are, and in doing so, this can really assist you in gaining the upper hand in challenging social interactions and really kind of help you remain calm during stressful ones. It's also easier to maintain your boundaries when you're sure of yourself and your needs. This will also help to build your confidence and aid you along the path of discovering who you are. The better you know yourself, the more likely you are to do the things that you love, learn the things that actually interest you, and spend time with the people who make you feel good. If that's not enough, here are some bonus benefits to time spent with yourself. So solitude can really kind of enhance your brainstorming, especially when alternating between working with a group and alone. It can spark creativity, and it can really kind of hone in your focus and your attention by improving your retention and recall. Biggest yet, solitude can help you have greater empathy for people. Focusing on your empathy can improve your ability to interpret others' emotions and facial expressions, which can then lead to a greater connection with those around you, which is really kind of what it's all about. You know, spending time by yourself can really help build stronger relationships with the people that you're around. So you might be asking, well, cool, is this it? Well, no, that's not it. I still have, let's see, at least 15 more minutes with you. I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy. So here is a little formula, easy for me to say, for calculating the difference between beneficial time alone and activities that might actually be considered lonely. So we call these the ifs. So if the activity is voluntary, if we have that key word of choice, if one can regulate one's emotions effectively, if one can be social if and when desired, and if one can maintain positive relationships outside of it. Research has shown that if all of these preconditions are met, then the solitude or that activity is considered beneficial and restorative. Should they not all be met, the solitude is considered to lean more towards being lonely than alone. So before we complete this third objective, there's one more point to make about how solitude can really benefit you. So pictured here, we have a Buddhist monk, a Catholic nun, and a yogi. All of these individuals utilize solitude to further their spiritual paths and development. While we certainly aren't suggesting you join a monastery or a nunnery, the point here is that these individuals use this practice as a way to find out who they are and develop their inner peace and their grasp of the self. They choose to carve out time in their day to withdraw from society for inner reflection and understanding. So before we jump into our final objective here, I just want to do a quick recap. So in objective 1, we examined and acknowledged the difference between being alone and being lonely. Objective 2, we looked at the research done as to why people may find it hard to be alone. And we just finished objective 3. the study into the many benefits that even just a little bit alone time can have for you mentally and physically. So now we'll hop into our final objective here. We're going to explore some scientifically approved activities that you can try during your alone time to make it as much of a positive impact as possible for yourself. So often when we think about a vacation or going to the movies, we think about doing that with someone. Kind of want to change your perspective, get your mind flipped over for a little bit because many activities are beneficial to do on your own as well. So remember, your alone time is an investment from yourself to yourself. Maybe you can finally pick up that book you've been meaning to read, or form a weekly habit to make time for stretching or exercising. Or how about you treat yourself and prepare your favorite meal to enjoy? There is a ton of research on the topic of solitude and how it can either help or hurt. On the positive end, research finds that it might be a little bit difficult to find things to do on your own at first. And it may be a challenge to really kind of slow down and take breaks. But the key is finding things to do that you truly enjoy and get lost in. And it's important too to make a plan ahead of time for your solitude. It's not this forced isolation time, but refreshing me time. And just remember, it is a choice. In addition to the previously mentioned stimuli, other scientifically backed ways to get you started on your journey to enjoying your solitude, here's just a couple more ideas for you. Treat yourself to dinner. So when you participate in a dining experience on your own, you can really kind of relax a little more, take in that ambiance in a different kind of way compared to when you're with company. Go grab a movie by yourself. Usually at movies, you don't spend a lot of time socializing at a film. So seeing a movie alone means you're fully focused on the story and the visuals happening in front of you and not distracted by what your companion may be thinking or feeling. Plus, I think of it as this way, I get more popcorn and snacks just for me. Go find a concert or a local band you think you might be interested in. Not only do you get to see your favorites without worrying about finding people to go with you, but seeing a concert alone is a great way to meet people who already share something in common with you. Music as well has been found to have restorative properties when you listen to it, as hopefully you learned during Kate Jordan's webinar last week on moving to motivate, and that recording of that webinar is available on our website, which I'll share at the end here for you. And probably the most simplest thing, especially if you have a short amount of time and it's a nice day, is to go outside and enjoy nature. So research has found that being alone in nature can help people focus on their priorities, gain a greater appreciation for relationships, and improve future goals. Not to mention, it's great for your health and your body, and plus you get to experience the beauty of the world. So if you don't already embrace time to yourself, hopefully this time spent virtually here with me has helped to inspire you to cultivate your passions and really enjoy your you time. And remember, alone does not mean lonely. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.